Dear students, welcome to this module on checkout procedure. This module will enable you to learn and understand the basic tasks performed by the staff at the front office during the checkout of the guests, which is the last phase of the guest cycle. One of the last contacts the guest has with the hotel is this checkout point. It is also most probably the last chance for the guest to interface face to face with hotel staff. It is therefore a great importance of the guest financial transactions with the hotels are settled properly and will also influence their final impression of the hotel among the guests. How important is the first impression is equally also important is this moment, the last impression by the hotel staff with the guests. After departure, the guest rooms will be available for resale to other guests. Consequently, the room status information has to be updated in all front office records immediately and the front office records must be amended. In summary, this process of checkout usually is performed by the front office cashier who involves in the settlement of guest accounts and also updating the front office records. The main duties of the front office checkout includes many. Now we will look into these functions. The first one is settlement of guest accounts and also updating the front office records after the guest departs from the hotel and also creating goodwill as well. The lasting impressions is done during this stage. Now we will move on to the next section to see what is the procedure involved in the checkout process. Number one is greeting the guest. Always greeting guests with a smile and say good morning or good evening and wish him for the day. Always try to use their names is the best option in this procedure. Number two, confirm guest details. For example, room number, name of the guest against the guest accounts as per our records. Number three will be check the departure date as per our records. The guest is leaving earlier than expected or other departments need to be intimated accordingly. Number four, check whether late checkout charges shall be applied or not. For example, if the guest is leaving after the 12 noon checkout time and is not a frequent guest, checkout charges has to be relevantly added to the guest accounts. Number 5 is that check for late charges if any. For example, to examine the current entries on guest accounts and in particularly check out any mini bar, breakfast or telephone charges are missed out and proper care must be added to add it on to these late charges. And number 6, give the guest the master and the guest folios for checking and tallying. When the guest checks it, the receptionist will have determined whether one or two more folios are to be produced, without which the pleasant helpful manner in order to give a good impression on the hotel. Number 7 is that guest settlement of accounts. Here the account settlement is done after the checking of accounting procedures is done by the guest and tallied by the front office cashier. And next will be to provide front office services upon guest departure, such as receiving the guest key and checking if they have used the safe deposit wallet, which is now need to be emptied, and also offer the assistance of bellboy or bell staffs to collect the luggages to be left into their vehicles. Number 10, see if guests would like to make future reservations if there are any planned vacations or future coming, and see that an onward reservation in another hotel within the chain. And finally, number 11 will be to update all the front office records. The most important one is to update the room status. It is important to do this in order to know the departures, the other departments that can accurately know the room status and guest status for further follow-ups. Now we'll go on to the next section, which is the procedure while we make the checkout. Now the first point, as we have seen, which is greeting the guest and check their name and room number. So here we will see that the all these are done here. Check if late charges are to be added, check for late charges, produce master and guest folios for guest inspection, settle accounts and update all the front office records. So welcoming the guest at this time of departure will ensure guest settles accounts faster without any delay. We will now see about late checkout in detail. When a request comes from the guest for checkout from the guest, the front office should first determine whether any late checkout charge is to be added to the guest account. Most hotels have 24 hours checkout and also states that checkout time will be added to the guest account if it exceeds. Most hotels have a stated checkout time at which departing guests must vacate their rooms. In general, checkout time is between 10 a.m. and 12 noon. The information in regarding this should be written on the key card so that the guest will be priorly informed, as well as stated in the information in the folder in the hotel's guest room. If guests do not vacate their room by the checkout time, or a late checkout charge may be imposed when the guest departs later. To avoid misunderstanding between the guest and the hotel, guests are often asked about their expected departure time during the reservation process, and also at the check-in they should be informed of the extra charges which will be put as late checkout charges if the guest departs later. Checkout time can sometimes be a problem for group tours especially. So we call it as a group tour when the number of customers are more than 10. Pleasure travelers, for example, may wish to enjoy every moment of their holiday. So if their coach does not leave the hotel until 4 p.m. for example, they dislike being asked to vacate these rooms by 12 noon. In such cases, in these situations, hotels usually arrange to have the guest luggage stored with the concierge and then reserve one or more hospitality or complimentary rooms to be vacated for comfort of the tour groups, so that late charges may not be added during the checkout. A late charge for a service or facility which is sent to the cashier too late to be added to the guest account for settlement. This is called as late charges. For example, a laundry charge may arrive at the front office cashier after the guest has already settled the bills or checked out, and there is possibilities that these bills are not added to the guest folio. In such situations, it may be difficult for the hotel to collect payment from the guests. So it is very important that to check from all the other departments whether any charges are to be added in this particular guest account. Now we will go to the next section to see what are the different methods available for the guest account settlement. As we have noted, the settlement of guest accounts is a comprehensive process. We will now look into these in detail. The types of settlement includes cash and credit settlement. A cash settlement is any form of settlement which can be paid into the bank on the same day as it is received under this classification. Cash settlements include settlements like those settled using local currencies and also using foreign currencies if we have guests from overseas, in travelers checks or by personal checks, and settlements by bank credit cards all come under these cash settlements. These bank credit cards are the cards which are issued by banks and are considered as being equivalent to using the cash settlement. It is because their imprints can be taken to the bank each day and the charged amount will be paid to the hotel's account on the same day when the transactions are made. The best known examples are Visa and Master cards. So now we have many more. Now we will see what are the other credit settlements. Credit settlements are the settlements for which a hotel does not receive cash upon accounts immediately, but it will be received on the later day. And these may include settlements by using charge cards, settlements by using corporate accounts when we have corporate bookings from companies, and also if the booking is done through a travel agent, the travel agent gives a voucher. These all has to be encashed later. Charge cards or credit cards are usually issued by a private credit card company, for example American Express, or we have Diners Club. So we have many more private institutions offering credit cards. When a guest settles their accounts with this charge card or a credit card, the hotel does not receive payment on the same day. Instead, the end of each shift, the cashier will transfer all the bills settled by this charge sheet to the accounts department for them to follow up for further settlements, and this may take a week's time or even a fortnight. At the end of the week or a month, the accounts department will send all these vouchers, the credit card vouchers, for the settlement, the total amount charged to the private card organization, together with the copies of all the imprints. On receiving the statement and imprints, the credit card company will pay the amount to the hotel less its commission. In this case of corporate accounts and travel agent vouchers, the bills will be transferred to the accounts department. The accounts department will then mail the account and invoice to the companies which are the agent for settlement, and later the checks received will be put for settlement. Once again, these travel agencies who operate for a group package will send its settlement with less their commissions. So this is how the settlements are done. Now we will see accepting the credit card or charge card settlement. On arrival, when a guest proposes to settle their account using credit card, the cashier must carry out various checks during the process of check-in itself. The cashier should look into following details: whether the card is accepted by our hotel, the name and the signature on the card are the same as that which is provided on our registration card, the card has not passed its expiry date, the card number is not listed on the cancellation bulletin as stolen or invalid. So the active status of this credit card and its acceptability by us must be very well checked by the front office cashier. We will now look into express checkout. In most hotels, guests tend to check out at approximately the same time. Consequently, the cashier's desk becomes very busy during this period. Hotels therefore offer express checkout service, which allows guests to check out without having to queue the cashier's desk during the departure. This also helps the cashier by reducing the pressure at work during the busy and peak times in hotel. With this facility of express checkout services, special forms will be available and placed in the guest room itself for being available from the front office. By signing the express checkout form, the guest agrees to have accepted the accounts finalized by the front office cashier after they have left the hotel. Now we will go to the next one, which is updating the front office records. When a guest has checked out after settling the bills, the front office is responsible for updating all records in the hotel diary, which is very important as per the hotel records. Also, it is the responsibility for the front desk staff to get the feedback from the guest for further growth and improvement. So always a feedback will help to improve the service, especially the service industries such as hotel, and this is usually done during this checkout. Also, room status and front office records has to be updated. After this checkout process, the rooms will become vacant and this status should be made available to other departments too, and is available for letting to other guests. Consequently, the guest is no longer a resident of the hotel. Therefore, the room status information and front office records must be changed immediately to keep them current, so that the hotel does not lose revenue and the guests do not wait for a long time without room. In large hotels with computerized front office system, this updating process is usually done very much automatically. This process is done using softwares and also the computers in each departments. After the guest has been recorded of having checkout done, the system will automatically change the room as vacant or dirty room. So this vacated room will indicate the other departments such as housekeeping to make the room clean and get ready for the next sale, and then this will be removed for vacant status. The name of the guest will be removed from the residence list and transferred to the checkout guest list. This guest account will be transferred into past guest file in the computer. However, it must be remembered that the registration card must be stored for a legal purpose, which is required to be stored with the hotel property at least for a period of 12 months. Now, we will now learn about the guest history records. In some hotels, a guest record is always maintained. This is a record of the guest room and the rates charged. Their likes, dislikes, and any other detail is known to the customer, as well as the amount which they have spent in the hotel. To know the average spending power of the guest will all be documented in this diary. One member of the front office staff will be given this duty of maintaining the guest history record. The records may be kept on the computer or on a handwritten record cards. So this will allow the frequent guests to see that the details are not collected again and again. For example, a business client may need a newspaper like Business Line or Economic Times, which may be not asked on arrival of a guest every day. And also, suppose if a person needs a diabetic diet, who's a diabetic, may not be asked what foods are preferred. This automatically, when served, will give a personalized service to the guests, which were all noted in this guest history record. When creating and updating the guest history record, a hotel will need to decide which the guests should be added the guest history records in hotels with a computerized front office system. The computer will automatically open a new guest history record for guests who stayed in the hotel for the first time. So for now, all details may be entered for the first time thoroughly and clearly, so that the guest may not be disrupted to receive the informations, the basic informations again and again during the next visits. Apart from creating and updating this guest history records, we will have to always have an annual review at all guest history records. Some records may have to be discarded in smaller hotels because the guests may not be our frequent guests anymore. Such guests may be deleted from our guest history cards and may not be kept because it may add storage data and it will not allow the access to many other solutions. Now we will see the rules and regulations of the front office staff. As we have already discussed in other modules too, punctuality is the utmost criteria, the quality needed for any front office staff, not only during this checkouts procedure. Be inspired and motivated at all times being punctual. And also, when we talk about the personal grooming, dressing up simple and at the same time very highly groomed. There is no mind in the service industry, especially in the hospitality industry like ours, which is a hotel industry, seeing different variety of customers whom we do not meet every day. Breaks are important, but never take a longer ones and extensive ones, because it will interrupt the duty of your friend standing in the front desk. Never leave the front desk unattended. So we will always see that the guests are our priority and customers are the king to any business. Always communicate your position with your teammates. Keep your eyes open, observe and check the front office environment permanently. Especially in cases like blacklisted customers, we will always have to have an eye to see if there are any blacklisted customers. Blacklist is that the customers who are not welcome to the property, and this will be usually checked during the list that is given from the criminal and the legal records. And sometimes the earlier the guest must have been very much problematic, and we must have noted them in the blacklist. Such customers must be noted very cautiously and seen that they are not again welcome to this hotel, our property. And now things like you should report any such irregularities immediately to the superior so that necessary action will be taken. Keep the property clean and stylish. So this improves the aesthetic appearance and eye appealing to the customers. every guest is a VIP, a very important person. So we will have to treat each and every guest as a very important person. Never say, I don't know or it is not my job, but always offer an alternative so that the guest will feel welcomed and personalized services by the hotel. Keep the mobile on silent mode and do not speak on mobile in the guest areas so as to avoid unnecessary calls and messages. These are some of the rules and regulations that the front office staff has to adopt not only during checkout procedure but during his duty all over the time. We will move on to the next important one, which is front office accounting cycle. Though we have seen earlier on the different settlements like cash and credit settlements, now we will have to see how this accounting process takes place in the hotel as such. The first important function of the front office accounting system is to maintain an accurate and up-to-date record of all the financial transactions that happens between the hotel and the guest, so that all the outstanding accounts are settled without any delay, especially in the case of credit settlements, because it may have to process through a company or it may have to process through a travel agent. From this, it can be seen that the front office accounting process can be divided into three main phases. Number one, creation of accounts. Number two, maintenance of accounts. And number three will be the settlement of accounts. A guest account is most important to the guest and as well the hotel property. A guest account or folio is usually created immediately after the guest checks in, which is usually during the arrival of the guest. So as we have studied in the earlier modules, there are four phases of the guest cycle, as you all know. The first cycle, which is pre-arrival, the second cycle, which is arrival, third phase, which is stay, and fourth phase, which is departure. So it is this phase of departure, the last phase, where the checkout process is done, but it is essential to maintain the guest accounts right from the second phase of arrival, that is during the check-in. This check-in process is to enter the guest details into an open accounts or to open a guest account manually, so that the guest accounts are added to this guest folio in whichever department or facility that is used by the guest in the house. So this credit limits or house limits, which we call, are often set, which means the guest may not go beyond this preset amount to their accounts. For example, if the guest is set with a 5,000 rupees package of this credit limit, we can offer him services till this 5,000 amount limit in all other facilities, like he may use his cafeteria, he may use the spa facilities, he may use the bar facilities, or he may use some other facilities like having a laundry services. So all these bills may exceed only till this limit of 5,000. So automatically the guest will be requested to pay this 5,000 to make his limit again tallying. This is the first step of opening the accounts. Now the step 2 is these accounts all have to maintain. This process, this step is said as maintenance of accounts. Once the guest accounts has been opened, all financial transactions between the hotel and the guest will be recorded on the account. The act of recording the transactions onto the guest account is called posting. So this process is nowadays not done manually, it automatically is done through the softwares like property management softwares, which we have discussed as property management softwares, which is PMS. These are all done in the maintenance of accounts. Now, the last phase of this account settlement is the settlement of accounts. The accounts are settled by guests as either as cash settlements or as credit settlements. Cash settlements include settlement using local currencies, that is in rupees, and in foreign currencies. For example, if the guest is from America, he may use his dollars. So like that, we will be ready to accept the foreign currencies when we have overseas guests. and also the settlement by traveler's check, also the use of personal checks and the bank cards are all different forms in which the cash settlement is done, which is settled to the accounts department on the very final day. The credit settlements, the same as cash settlements, do not get enhanced or added into the accounts of the hotel the same day, but it may take some days to get settled to the accounts of the hotel. These may include the settlement through corporate agencies or through travel agent settlements. So now we will come to the last section, the conclusion of this module. So to conclude, this checkout procedure is vital that all the employees of the hotel and especially the front office department has a major role to play in the guests throughout the stay to create a memorable experience among the guests. Whether the employees are working behind the front desk or at the housekeeping department or in a restaurant or a cafe, each employee should be treated in a way that the hotel guests feel kind of hospitality and remember the rule that the customer is the king of the business, especially for the service industries like ours, the hospitality industry. The process of guest handling at these very last few minutes during this checkout process will have cherishing memories for the guest to come back to us again and again. Hope you all enjoyed this module. Thank you.